Hey guys, Ryan here. Today I want to go over the new version 6 software released for Holley HP and Dominator. Uh, just give a brief overview of what's new and changed in it and kind of get some ideas from everyone on what you'd like to see more in depth in some future videos. With that, we'll just get right into it. So the first thing you'll see in version 6 that's different from the older versions is a new button right here called Download and Open Log File. And as long as your ECU is plugged in and turned on, when you click it, it'll automatically open up the download screen and start downloading the bottom data log in the data log monitor, in the data log screen. So for you drag race guys, this is a big help because it's one button now after the pass. As long as your logging's set up right, you come back to the pits, plug in, hit the button, and it downloads your log. Now, so you can see it opened up my log, and you can see this is from my Cayman crank sensor video where I did some diag discussion. Not sure if that one's going to be up yet or not when we see this, but just know that I have a video on Cayman crank sensor diagnostics and how to tell what sort of issues you're having. So the next thing would be when you go to open your global files and you go under custom cals, you'll see there's a new one for racing where we added some calibrations that should give you a rough idea of what a tune should look like for each of these applications. These aren't out of running vehicles, they're more of an idea of how a tune should look in our opinion for the application. And if you want more depth, I can go through the one or more of these tunes in detail to show you the what and why everything is set the way it is. But we'll open one of these up and we'll go to the biggest addition to version 6, which is the new transmission type, racing transmission. And in that we have basically an automated shifter setup, converter lockups. Most people will be using a one stage, but if you have something like a Lenko with a Bruno, you might end up with 3 or 4 or a tie drive if you're using those. And then there's also spool assist valves. This is for your typical transmission dumps, internal and external, for getting up on the trans brake. And then we have the dump valves, which is typically your externals to be used. Sometimes you use them on the brake, but more so from the release of the brake down track some amount. The next major difference in this software is under the Nitrous, which is not in this calibration. So we'll go back to our nice racing calibrations, open up our 6th stage here. And under the Nitrous, you'll see we added a new button called Stage Summary. And in that, it just shows each of your individual Nitrous stages on one screen, along with a new parameter to add the jet size for each stage. So if you basically if you're pilling up between runs, you can just record that here and know which tune and which jet it was set for. And as part of that, there's some new graphs that put it all on one. Again, if you want to see some stuff in more detail, just let me know, and I'll do a specific video on parts of version 6. Right now, I just want to keep going on an overview. The next thing we did was we added some new parameters to the advanced ICF. So with all of the racing transmission stuff, we've added things like trans dumps, converter lockup offsets, and then we added rev limiter offsets, which is actually one of the more powerful things we added in version 6. It allows you to do things with some traction control and other things that I'm definitely going to do a video on in the future. Another small change you'll see in the new software is under the staging assist option. When you enable the duty cycle, we now put an individual pulse time under this. So we do some math here for you. If you have 60 hertz and you set it at 50%, you'll see that each pulse is going to be 8 thousandths of a second. And that's just to help you kind of visualize what is happening when you adjust that duty cycle percent versus hertz. At 20 hertz, that same 50% is now 4 times larger, roughly. 3 times larger. The other minor change here we made is that you can now go up to 5 seconds on the time here. We've had a lot of requests to make this larger since 1 second was just barely enough for a lot of people. And then lastly, for features you can see in the software is under the ignition settings, we added a single pulse ignore cam after start. And you'll see it says not recommended for coil on plug applications. That's more of a covering our butts sort of thing than anything. If you lose a crank signal without the cam sensor, you can end up with a different failure mode than you normally would. That can be more dramatic and catastrophic. Another thing we did is in the comparison, if I were to go and open another one of these custom cals from the racing, and I've got the 004 open. If I were to open this one, you can see the comparison has the normal bolded items that are different, but I can click this show difference only, and what it will do is hide anything that's the same. So this is really handy if you have two passes you just made at the drag strip, or you're on the engine dyno, or anywhere you've made a single change and you want to just go back and refer to it, make sure it was exactly what you thought. Perhaps you made some timing changes, or you want to go back to your first pull of the day and just compare it. You know, this will allow you to just not have to hunt through all of this extra stuff. So the last couple changes we want to talk about is we just showed that cam ignore. If you look in the help file, you'll see that we list out all of the combinations that accept it. I'll switch over to it real quick here and just show you. You can see that this table right here is at the very bottom of the help file for version 6 updates, and it lists off each cam and crank combo and what's allowed. You can see that the single pulse cam ignore is allowed anywhere in the software. Now then, the other things that are in there is we made the rev limiters much smoother. Mostly spark high only will be affected by that, but some of the others, depending on the tooth count of the crank wheel, might be smoother as well. Basically, the more teeth you have, the better the improvement you'll see. And then, as always, we've made more drive-by-wire tweaks to help things be less error-prone and safer. And then a traction control update to the naming of the profiler to also include the TC3. And then actually there is one last little thing I'm kind of proud of that I want to show. I see this occasionally where people go, hey, I can't put something on a pin and I don't know why. So in previous versions of software, what would happen is you'd have this, number one, this bad IO on a pin here, and what would happen is over time perhaps you'd turn it off, and then maybe at some other time you hit delete, but you never unmapped that pin. It's still on the pin map, and when you would go there in previous versions, it would just be blank and show this G, and you wouldn't know, other than these other letters missing, that there was an IO on that pin. So we added this unnamed IO here so you would know and not try to drag something on there unknowing. And that's pretty much all I got for version 6. That's just a, like I said, a brief overview, and I'd love to know what you want to hear more about, and I can do an individual video on that for you. I'm Ryan. Have a great day.